Dexter Resurrection recently released its penultimate episode of the season, and not only according to me, but according to IMDb, in a show that's littered with ratings in the 9s, this one has taken the top spot in the entirety of the series. It was 0.2 off being the perfect episode, but in my eyes, it literally was perfect. From the standout moment during the ending, everything finally being revealed to Leon Prater, the pacing of it, and also the way that we were left waiting for the finale. It all just added to it being the episode that we were waiting for. So with that, I wanted to share with you why I feel the episode is just so good. So let's get into it. Here is why Dexter Resurrection episode 9 is perfect. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The way Batista's death was handled. I think it's clear to see that the standout moment in the entirety of this episode, and most likely the show, is the death of Batista. Even though this was a moment that many of us predicted would happen, seeing it unfold in the way that it did was still just so heartbreaking to watch. Angel Batista is one of the OGs of the show, and there was always a little part of me that was questioning if they'd actually go through with killing him. What I loved about the death of Batista was that even though it was sudden, it actually happened in stages throughout the show. The first stage started a few episodes back when Dexter planted the idea inside of Detective Wallace's mind that he was a deranged individual due to his obsession with the Bay Harbor Butcher. This was because it was his former partner Dokes that was framed as him and he could never get over it, plus also the death of his ex-wife Maria. This was when his stock first dropped and his integrity as a captain started to fade. Then, in the previous episode, Wallace phoned Quinn and he told her how he just upped and retired out of the blue and that he didn't know that he was in New York. So it added to the random nature of it all. Plus, pair that with the kill room incident where Detective Wallace and D'Oliva were there and Batista was claiming that Dexter had set up the entirety of the room. But then, when it came to the penultimate episode, the thing that I felt was the final nail in the coffin, and the moment where Batista symbolically died was when he had to surrender his shield when leaving the New York Police Department. Batista being on the police force made up the entirety of his identity. It was who he truly was. He was even putting it over his own family because he was so determined to catch the true Bay Harbor Butcher, showing just how much of a committed and good cop he was. However, that police badge being taken away from him was the symbolic killing of him. We saw that symbolism being present when he instinctively went to get it out of his pocket when he was at Prater's, but then realized that it wasn't there. So the stripping of Batista's life and identity, so to speak, actually started a couple of episodes back. Then, when it came to his actual death, that was teased to us in a couple of different ways as well, making us hang on every breath. At first, it was made out to us like Batista was going to be killed by Dexter, and part of me did truly believe that, especially with Dexter connecting Batista's determination to take him down as part of the code, which was don't get caught. However, when that blade raised into the air and it then slashed the restraints instead, it did catch me off guard. The sheer tension that was present when Batista was on top of Dexter, almost trying to kill him, showed just how much he'd longed to hear that Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher. And that was probably why he was overwhelmed with emotion. But for him to then be fired at by Prater, seeing his body just drop was just so sad to look at. The conversation that Dexter and Batista even had together at the end was heartbreaking. Dexter felt the weight of responsibility for his former partner to be lying there, bleeding out, with him not believing a word that he said about Dokes and Maria. His final words also being "F you, Dexter" just felt poetic. Batista lived to catch the Bay Harbor Butcher, or at least to find out for certain that it was Dexter. He knew it, but nobody else believed him, ultimately being made out to be a complete lunatic. But right at the end, he got what he wanted in hearing it from the horse's mouth, but it sadly cost him everything that he had. I also thought the scream that Dexter let out right at the end before the episode cut to black was just so harrowing to listen to and see. Dexter doesn't like an innocent life to be taken, and if he wanted Batista dead, he would have done it such a long time ago. So seeing how hurt Dexter was by somebody from his past being taken by Prater, a man that he despised, showed that he was gonna look to get revenge. The death of Batista in all of those stages was just handled in the most perfect way possible. The plans unraveled in a singular line of dialogue. Another thing that made this episode so good was how the entire point of the season was single-handedly brought down by one line of dialogue. Throughout the 9 episodes, we saw Dexter make his way into the group of serial killers by operating as Red Schmidt, the Dark Passenger. And one by one, he took the killers out that were right in front of him because he wanted to make them pay, because he thought that they were disgusting human beings and wanted to prevent more innocent lives being taken. He'd almost been caught on a couple of different occasions. Charlie was growing suspicious of him, but he'd managed to gain the trust of Leon Prater in a way that nobody else had done before, showing just how much of a cunning individual and intelligent thinker Dexter was. However, with Batista going to Prater and him thinking he's doing something that'll go in his favor in protecting him, it actually ended up going in the complete opposite direction. When Prater said how he knew the person in Batista's photos as Red Schmidt, but then when Batista said how his name was Dexter Morgan and that he worked in homicide with him for around 20 years, the penny dropped, my stomach dropped, and Prater's grin raised. Pair that with the boom sound effect that happened in the background and Charlie's smile, it just showed that all of the hard work that Dexter had put into concealing his identity was now undone. And with it also taking place mere moments before Dexter was planning on killing Prater so he could end his club of killers for good, it was the perfect timing for it to happen. It was a great moment and showed how a season's worth of work for a character can unravel within a matter of seconds if the wrong piece of information gets shared with them. The development of Charlie. Charlie is a character that I feel I've been a bit on the fence about throughout this season, and I know she's been a bit of a divisive character. But what I would say is that during this episode we saw that she had a human side to her, was once a hero, and that scene that she had with Dexter in the car, outside of the ending, it was probably my favorite scene in the episode. The sheer performance that Uma Thurman gave and the emotion that was present when she found out that her mother could have been harmed by Dexter, especially considering she's a character that up until then had previously been robotic in the mannerisms and expressions that she had. It really just flipped things on its head and it showed a completely different side to the character. The close-up shot really added to the claustrophobic nature of Charlie's life, not only being at risk whilst inside of a car which is small, but also the fact that the giggly saw was around her neck. It just meant that that sense of not being able to breathe and the claustrophobia really came through the screen. Seeing Charlie basically go from leading an interrogation and the conversation with Harrison, being the one that was in full control, to then being the one on the receiving end of it and not truly knowing what to do was perfect. Charlie's tears, the panic, and the amount of fear that she had was something that was needed, and I almost feel like that should end up being a turning point for the character. We saw how Prater just viewed her as a message in the episode when she was harmed, like a disposable thing. So I do question if she'll end up changing sides. There's been tension forming, and Dexter confronting her and allowing her to vocalize her actual thoughts and opinions, and the fact that she hates Leon Prater and what he believes in. It showed that she wasn't actually that different to Dexter himself. The setting up of the finale. Penultimate episodes are usually some of the strongest episodes in a show's run, and it can often be better than a finale. To be fair, for the Dexter Resurrection finale to be stronger than this, it would basically have to be a 10 out of 10, which it wouldn't surprise me if it managed to do. What this episode really thrived at was building towards the finale that we were all hoping to see. Going into it, the stakes are at the highest point that they've been at in the show. There's a dead body in the vault, Dexter is trapped in the vault, and there's a building full of law enforcement officers meters away from him. Prater now has a taste for blood following him committing his first kill, if he's not the New York Ripper, which, judging by his shocked face, he's probably not. And with Dexter also wanting to get revenge, if he does get out, he'll want to avenge Batista's death. So honestly, it feels like there are so many different directions that the final episode could go in, and the unpredictability of the story was really supported by the way that this episode was constructed. Overall, Dexter Resurrection has been a near-perfect season of television. It's matured over the episodes, and it's reached its crescendo at the right point in terms of the pacing. Episode 9 was the perfect episode of Dexter, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it's going to have the perfect finale too. Don't worry, I'll report back to you on that in a few days' time. So, there you have it, why Dexter Resurrection Episode 9 is perfect.